friends, it's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm super excited about this video idea. This tier ranking system has been going around YouTube for I think at least a year now, but it's really resurfaced in the BookTube community in the last couple of weeks. I've been seeing these rankings all over YouTube, all over Twitter, and I really wanted to do one as well. I've also really wanted to revisit books that I've deemed favorites since being on BookTube. I have pretty much put out a top books of the year every year since I've started my channel, I think except for 1 year. And so what I did was I loaded all of the books that I have deemed to be favorites in the past, put them in this tier ranking system here, and we are going to revisit if I still think these are favorite books. And I'm so excited about this. And I'm looking at some of these choices and I was like, whew, that's questionable. I don't know if it's still a favorite. As you can see here, I've broken this down into 5 categories and I've reversed the coloring because I think it's weird that everyone's favorite tier is red and their least favorite is green. I feel like green is good and red is bad, so it should be flipped, so I flipped them. So we have all-time faves, so things that have stood the test of time and will always be favorites. I have a category for stand by it. This is something that isn't an all-time fave. I won't think about it maybe in 10 years, but I still would recommend it. I still stand by that for that particular year. It was one of the best books that I had read. I have a category for I need to reread it, reevaluate my feelings, dip my toe in it now. I've grown a lot as a reader in the last 5 years I've been on BookTube. Category for I take it back. I feel like there's gonna be some in here where I wanna take it back. And then, oh, what the fuck was I thinking tier? I don't know how many are gonna fall into that tier, but that's like, yeah, no, we're no longer favorites. Something like the author's been an idiot, or I don't know, something happened where I'm no longer going to support that particular work. There's quite a few books here. This will probably be, I'm not going to talk about a lot of these in depth, but we might be here for a while, so grab a snack. Let's get it going. So the first book here is Shadow and Bone. Shadow and Bone is actually my favorite series that Hugo has written. Ooh! Is that controversial to say? I like this way better than Six of Crows and King of Scars we don't talk about. So this isn't an all-time fave, but I do stand by it. Sweet Evil. This is by Wendy Higgins. This is a book that I read, I think my first year on BookTube, and I was obsessed with it. But I feel like there was some undercurrent religious, conservative ideals that were kind of pushed in this book that I don't necessarily think I would agree with now. So I don't know, that I think I'd have to reread this. I do remember crying during the finale book, but I was a different person back then. Next is Winter. Winter I read, this was recent. I loved Winter. I really enjoy the Lunar Chronicle series. I think it's a great YA series. I'm a huge fan of it. I stand by that. The Naturals. Oh my God. Y'all are sleeping on this series. This is one of my favorite series of all time. This is by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It is like From the Lines meets YA. It's fantastic. And you all should be reading it. Siege and Storm. See, same thing here. And Ruin and Rising, they're all, I read the whole series in 1 year, so they were all favorites from that year, and I stand by the fact that they were favorites from that year. Firefight by Brandon Sanderson. Ooh, I don't know. I really disliked the third book, like a lot. And I would never reread that series. Do I still recommend it to people though? Ooh. This is like the first one that I'm like, I don't know. Do I recommend this series? Do I ever talk about the series? Do I ever think about the series? I think I'm gonna take it back. I think it's gonna live right there for right now though. Sweet Reckoning. This is the third book in that Sweet series. And this one hit me in a lot of different ways, but if I remember correctly, there's a marriage that happens in this book and these kids are quite young and the marriage is it's questionable. I don't know that this would be a favorite book anymore. I feel like the first book I could still possibly, I don't know. I have to reread this. I have to reread that. Ooh, Layer of Dreams. It's one of my all-time favorite series, The Diviners by Lila Bray. It's fantastic. The audiobooks are some of my favorite audiobooks that I've ever listened to. A Court of Thorns and Roses. What am I even thinking? That's an all-time fave. The first book is not my favorite in the series. I will say that. But the series is an all-time favorite. But that book is not. Whatever. It's an all-time fave. I love that series. It's staying where it is. The Conspiracy of Us. That's an all-time fave. I love that series. That's by Maggie Hall. The romance, angst, love triangle is to die for. And the National Treasure aspect of it is phenomenal. I love that series. Ooh, Crown of Midnight. That's an all-time fave. I am rereading that series right now. How to Love. Also an all-time fave. One of my favorite contemporary books that I've ever read. Snow Like Ashes. The first book is fantastic. I thought the second and third book were a little on the slow side. It's not an all-time fave, but I stand by it. It's fantastic. I would recommend that absolutely. I moved it. Anna and the French Kiss. I'm taking this one back. I would almost put it in the need to reread, but I feel like if I were to reread it, I would be very annoyed by it. I absolutely loved this book when I first read it. It hasn't aged well. When I think about that book now, I think about the discussion around the book and around the icky relationship dynamic than the actual happy feelings I had while reading it. And that's also how I feel. Oh my God. Okay, so Colleen Hoover is very tricky. Ugly Love. I think Ugly Love I'd have to reread. There's some really creepy step-sibling relationship in this book, but I feel like that wouldn't necessarily bother me as much as other people. I think what would determine this not being a favorite anymore is if the relationship is weird and toxic. You know? Colleen Hoover's earlier books, there's some weird toxic stuff. I think she's gotten better with time. She's not perfect, but I think she's gotten better. And so if I was to reread this, I think it would depend on however that swung, whether or not I take it back or stand by it. Queen of Shadows is one of my favorite books of all time. It's an all-time fave. The One, okay, what the fuck was I thinking? This is a guilty pleasure trash pocket. It's a trash pocket series for sure. That is not a favorite book of all time though. That's a weird book for me to put on my favorites. Sweet Filthy Boy is one of my favorite books of all time. No, up here. That is part of the Wild Seasons series by Christina Lauren. It's one of their earlier series. It's dirty and it's a sweet, filthy series. It's a fun, fantastic time. Let's just put all of them up here because they're all favorites. Actually, Dark Wild Night is not my favorite of the series. That one, I stand by it. I stand by the fact that I put it in my favorites video of the year, but the other three, it's a quartet. The other three are all-time faves. I don't know that I would ever reread Dark Wild Night. I would, in a heartbeat, reread one of the other three if you asked me to. The Martian, I stand by that. It's not an all-time favorite book. I really enjoy my time reading it, but it's not an all-time fave. It's not something that I think I would reread. I would reread these in a heartbeat. My all-time faves. Illuminae, all-time fave. Nowhere But Here. That's one of my all-time favorite YA contemporaries. It takes a lot for me to put a YA contemporary. Oh, Wicked Sexy Liar, I see that. Let's pop that up here with these guys. Those three I would reread in a heartbeat. Amor Amor by Krista Becker Ritchie. I stand by that. It's a YA, not YA. No, take that back. It is definitely new adult. It's a Cirque du Soleil romance. These two characters live in Vegas and they work for a show that's very much like Cirque du Soleil. And it's a fantastic time. It's fun. I loved the main characters. I loved their romance. Sweet Temptation. Okay, this is one of those books where it's the entire trilogy retold from the male perspective. And I loved this book. I loved this story retold from Kaiden's perspective. I just thought that Kaiden's insight was just another level that I cried throughout a lot of this book, but I don't know if I would still enjoy it to this day. So I think I'd have to reread it. Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. I take it back. I love their romance. I love their relationship. I love the two main characters together. There is a lot of very, very questionable cheating that happens in this book. And the one that's being cheated on explains it away really easily without really a whole lot of like fuss. Like, this is an idealistic situation that would not happen in real life. Map of Fates. All-time fave. Obsidio. All-time fave. November 9. I don't think I would like any of these Colleen Hoover books if I read them now. I'm gonna say, what the fuck was I thinking? There is so much that happens in this book that is not okay. I feel if I would have read November 9 now, I would be disturbed. Truth Witch. This I stand by. I can't deem this series a favorite yet until the whole series is out. Lady Midnight. I take this back. Take that back. The Dark Artifices is my least favorite series that she's ever written. Sleeping Giants. This is a favorite. I love the Themis Files so much. If you read Illuminae and loved it, you need to read Sleeping Giants, and vice versa. You will love them both. They're both fantastic. Court of Mist and Fury. That's an all-time fave. The Hating Game. I think I stand by this. Like great tier, not God tier. It Ends with Us. This one I really enjoyed. And this one I would recommend to people. This one has a lot of really heavy topics. Probably the closest that Colleen Hoover will ever get to like an Own Voices story. It has to do with like abusive relationships. I feel that she handled this one the best just because it's the most close to her own life experiences. Oh boy, Empire of Dust. This series I have such mixed feelings about. The first two books I loved. The third book is a disaster, and I have not read the fourth because the third book was so bad. So I stand by the first two I still loved so much. Empire of Dust is the second book, and Legacy of Kings is the first book. I don't think that I could recommend this in like good conscience to somebody because she dropped the ball so hard in book 3. Dropped the fucking ball. I'm mad about it. Bad Blood. This is an all-time favorite. Oh dear, I have to. My screen's not big enough. All-time fave. That's part of the Natural series. Renegades, I think I have to reread that. I don't really know how I feel about that book anymore. I've read it so long ago. It's a Marissa Meyer superhero book. I don't really know what I think of that. Female to Species. I've forgotten a lot of what happens in this book, to be quite honest. I stand by it, but I think I want to reread it. But I think upon rereading it, I would still really enjoy it. I don't think the reread would change my opinion on it at all. So I'm going to stand by that one. Here's some sequels. Gemina, Waking Gods, all fantastic. Oh my God, Only for a Night. This is a novella, it's an adult novella, and it was so steamy and it was so good. It's probably my favorite novella I've ever read. Not that I've read very many, but I loved this and I would absolutely like read that again. Same with The Progeny. I'm rereading this book right now, actually. Is this an all-time fave? I haven't read the sequel, so I can't say it's an all-time fave yet, but I'm gonna stand by it. I will still recommend this to people. Geekerella, still an all-time fave. I loved that Cinderella retelling. Court of Wings and Ruin. Slap that baby in top tier. Love that book. This one is Only for Your Touch. This is one of the, what's this one? Only for You. Let's do both of these. Oh my God, this tier is huge. These are both sequels to Only for a Night, and it's about 3 men who escape the Irish mob in Boston and start their own aphrodisiac nightclub. And it's amazing. I love all 3 of those. I would read those in a heartbeat. 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That's an all-time favorite for sure. The Good Daughter. Is this an all-time favorite mystery thriller? I don't think so. It's a favorite, but I don't know if it's an all-time favorite. Great level. It's not God tier. Daughter of the Pirate King. I really, really enjoyed this book when I first read it. It's been a very long time since I've read it, and I feel like I have to reread this before I can make a determination. I actually have plans to reread that. Furyborn, see, same kinda. I gave Furyborn a 5 out of 5 stars. I felt like it was almost Throne of Glass-ish feeling when I first read it, but I don't know if I would feel the same way about it now. I read this like with, I don't know. I feel like I have to reread this. Rumi's by Christina Lauren. I stand by this one. I loved that book. It's not one of my favorite of theirs, but I do really enjoy that book. Only Human. That's the 3rd book in the Sylvain Neuvel series. Sleeping Giants, The Themis Files. The Accidental Bad Girl. Similar to The Female of the Species, I don't remember a lot of what happens in this book, but I think I would still like it if I were to reread it, so I'm gonna stand by it. Tower of Dawn is an all-time favorite. The Kiss Quotient, not one of my all-time favorite romances, but I still really enjoyed it, and I think I would stand by that. Next, we have An Unwanted Guest by Cheryl Lapina. This is a fantastic mystery thriller novel. It is not an all-time favorite. You know, I feel like I'm missing something. I'm missing a book on this list. I was thinking mystery thriller. Where's Lock Every Door? Right? Lock Every Door? Yes, by Riley Sager. That should be on this list. I don't know how I missed that. But An Unwanted Guest, I stand by this as being a fantastic mystery thriller. My favorite, Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren. This is one of my favorites of theirs, which I think is an unpopular opinion. I don't feel like a lot of people particularly love this one, but I did. The Gilded Wolves. This is an interesting one because I don't really remember a whole lot about the actual plot of this book. Like, I remember talking about it in my favorites of 2019, and I had a hard time talking about it because I couldn't really remember anything about it. So I think I have to actually reread this before I can determine if it's a favorite or not. Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. This is another all-time favorite. It's one of my favorite of their novels. Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This one I stand by. Daisy Jones and the Six. These last 4. Daisy Jones and the Six, all-time fave. The Honeymooners, all-time fave. A Curse So Dark and Lonely. Oh, I want to say an all-time fave, but this is the first book in a series, so a lot could happen. So I'm going to stand by that. We'll see coming up on like 2nd book and 3rd book how I feel about that, but as of right now, that's a favorite book of mine. But I'm hesitant to say it's an all-time fave. Then we have Amy and Rodgers' epic Detour. This I stand by. I don't think it's an all-time fave. I'd have to reread it before I made it an all-time fave, but I definitely still stand by that I loved it deeply. That's the end of my list. As you can see, what does this do? Ha ha! That looks nicer, doesn't it? End of the video, I figured that out. Okay, as you can see here, most of the books that I've mentioned over the last 5 years as being all-time faves have remained all-time faves. I really take that into consideration. I really think on it before I put a book in my favorites video because I know people are going back to look at those and I don't want them to be, I want them to get a good sense of my reading taste from those videos to know whether or not they should subscribe to my channel. So I really think about what I would say is a favorite. I put a lot of stock in that word and I weigh it very heavily and I don't give it away lightly. So as you can see here, things I've said are my favorites have consistently stayed my favorites. Whether they have become all-time favorites or if they're like great tier favorites from that year and still really amazing, great books. Just maybe not like top tier, S tier, God tier favorites. There are a few that I'd have to reread, I think. Some of these on this reread list are actually books I'm planning to reread this year, like Renegades, Daughter of the Pirate King, Furyborn, and The Gilded Wolves are all books I plan to reread this year. The books that I'm like taking back are books that just haven't aged well, really, or that I've sat on longer. Discussions, future books in the series. My growth as a reader has had them take a back seat as favorites. What the fuck was I thinking? These 2 books are questionable. So I feel like a lot of these books on the bottom half here are books that I have grown as a reader. My taste preferences have changed. My worldview has changed. And thus the books aren't retroactively as great as they maybe once were. So that is my tier ranking of all the books that I have claimed on BookTube to be my favorites. I would love to know if you were surprised by anything on here. Anything on here that you were like, whoa, you thought that was a favorite? Please tell me all of your thoughts in the comments down below. If you would like to follow me in any other platform to discuss books, I am both on Instagram and Twitter, and my handles are on the screen now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I will talk to you very soon. Bye!